So they're going to have to find their own inner aggression and harshness and learn to be comfortable with.
Don't you think that's crazy sounding? That you literally just said some women are going to have to learn to be comfortable being mean.
Coming all the way from Minneapolis to Washington, D.C., we now bring you Enter the Freud.
Warning, this podcast is for entertainment only and not intended for medical purposes. Listen at your own risk.
It's almost the opposite of what we were talking about when we were saying, if you're a guy, mostly you just end up being rejected by women, and it's a trial and error of figuring out how to approach women and be successful at that. Well, some women literally get hit on every single day.
Yeah.
Wherever in their own buildings, where they live, in the gym, when they go they go to Starbucks, in the parking lot.
Yeah. Like
people will yell at them from the parking lot. Hey, give me your number. Give me your number. Like as if that is a reasonable approach. I
know.
Hey, what's the silliest approach you've ever seen a guy do in front of you?
I can't think of a good example, but it's almost like I don't really know. I don't know, but here's the thought that came to mind is it's like guys, they try more reasonable approaches and they get rejected 99.9% of the time. So they just keep getting crazier and crazier. And eventually, I think, whether they're conscious of it or not, it just becomes kind of like a comedy. And it's like the absurdity that they like are desperate to find a woman and they never will. So now it's just like they turn it into like a comedy entertainment routine or something.
Well, certainly the guys on YouTube that are telling you how to break through the rejection anxiety they're just like, yeah, go up, do silly things. And then they'll film each other doing stuff like walking up to women and just saying absurd things and then somehow getting their number.
Yeah.
But
you know, like if the stereotype of you imagine a few guys like on a construction crew sitting outside eating lunch and some woman goes by and they're all like, woo-hoo-hoo, that bae, hoo-hoo, nice ass. You know, like they don't actually think that they're going to, get her number because of that. They're just like having fun.
Yeah. I have definitely been on that construction crew before.
Right. And I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I think it's maybe a product of this cultural thing where like men get rejected. It's just I think it's kind of like a nasty cycle. It's like men get rejected, and so they get kind of more bold, and when they get more bold, the women get more annoyed and make their lead wall even thicker, which just makes the men even more frustrated. It just kind of seems like it's a nasty spiral in that direction.
Yeah. I definitely see that cycle, but I also realize you're like Mr. Cycle Man. You see things very much in this cyclical nature. And I think that's actually cool. Well, because this is like the third time that you've brought up this, and you're not the only one. There's actually a really famous psychologist who referred to human beings as loopy creatures. That they constantly end up in these loops. So he too is pretty hip to this phenomenon. But imagine if you're a chick, and this literally happens not every single day, several times a day. I began to like forget what it's like to be around a chick that happens to. And then just to see what happens if they're ill-equipped for it. Because not everyone's personality is extroverted enough. They're like too high on the politeness scale. And so then when all these guys yell at them, they're just apologizing all day. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm with someone. No, I can't give you my number. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I can't talk to you right now. No. And then guys will like just follow them.
Oh, then that's a problem because the women shouldn't be apologizing. They shouldn't be, if a guy's doing something, whether he's doing a good job or whether he's being a complete idiot, if the woman is uninterested, she should just completely ignore his existence.
I totally agree. And it's just only some women understand that that's appropriate, as we're all conditioned to be polite and respectful.
Yeah, right.
Depending on your family values that you get raised in, you're kind of, and if your family that you're raising, you're supposed to be respectful, but then some people in your family are pretty outrageous and tough to deal with. You can kind of end up with this personality structure that tolerates too much.
Okay, so first you were saying that there's this culturally trained politeness. And basically, if a woman is trained to be polite and considerate, and then men come and do this different thing, it's kind of like they're exploiting that politeness training. They're like, haha, chick has to be fucking polite to me, so I'm gonna fucking exploit that. And then, to make it even worse, there's some women who just are, I don't know if it's just that they're attractive. I don't think it's just that they're attractive. They're attractive, but also they're somehow doing something to kind of peacock feather a little bit that gets attention, and then they just get assaulted, but like way too much.
That's the thing that I was trying to figure out, because you imagine, okay, if this person is your patient, and then you're trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we reposition them in the world so they're not targeted so obviously?
Yep.
But so that's a very subtle approach versus then, like, at some point you have to be able to detect that from further away, and then when people don't receive those messages, you have to somehow let them know directly in a way that gets more and more assertive till you're actually physical.
Yep.
You literally physically have to get someone away from you.
Yep. But again, I think the women who have this politeness thing you're talking about, they have trouble doing all of this. It's my guess is that they learned as little girls in their family to be the nice girl, and then that's just like ingrained kind of in their personality, and they're not comfortable being mean or rejecting a person, and then now they're going to be prey to guys who prey on that shit. And so if we're talking about psychotherapy, how to shift that, they're going to have to learn to be comfortable being mean and hurting people's feelings and stepping on toes and setting boundaries. And so they're going to have to find their own inner aggression and harshness and learn to be comfortable with.
Don't you think that's crazy sounding? That you literally just said some women are going to have to learn to be comfortable being mean.
Yes.
And you're like, what world is that? That's really a world? Because a lot of people who are naive would say, well, in my world, someone should never have to be mean, and you should never have to raise your voice and or yell. And I've literally had this happen to me where I'm talking to a couple, and I'm telling them, like, hey, well, what are you going to do? Because one of them is struggling, the woman's struggling to be polite, and the guy's like, yeah, I'm worried whenever I'm not around because I see this happening. And then I'll say, like, well, what happens if you're on a subway and some guy comes up and is just like, hey, what's going on, lady? Let me get some of this, and starts groping. Actually physically touching you. What are you going to do? And then the person struggled to actually tell me that she was like, she would say, oh no, sorry, and like move away. And I'm like, sorry?
Sorry is the wrong word in that situation.
At some point, you need to be able to say, get the fuck away from me.
Yes.
Right? Like, and something similar that really alarms everyone around you, that there's something happening here that's really unacceptable, including your potential assailant. Because at which point does it come from just a funny little game, ha ha ha, I'm with the other worker guys and we're catcalling, which some would argue that's not funny, and then it goes from that to now someone's really overstepping their boundaries and they're physically violating you.
Yep.
And so from that place, how do we then condition somebody? Well, first of all, we have to acknowledge that the world is that dangerous and it is that creepy.
Yes.
For real.
Well, A, acknowledge that it's that dangerous and creepy, and B, acknowledge that just through some sort of like feminist ideology or social whatever ideology the world's not going to change anytime soon. Like, despite what we want or what should be the case or whatever, the world's not going to change to that anytime soon.
No. Yeah, that's for sure too, because you would say like, well, why can't men just somehow take a course that then, or we should raise our boys so that they become polite to women? Well, then what? We'll start with our sons, and so then they'll be polite in 10 years?
Right.
Like, what do we do for 10 years? Well, for 10 years, you're going to have to seriously get well-equipped and versatile in your ability to deal with those who come up to you and are just like, a person making an actual attempt to maybe date that person. They're actually trying to get the number of somebody because they're like, oh my God, look at this attractive woman. This never happens to me. I'm on the train with a super beautiful woman. I'm going to go. This is my one moment. I've been working with my therapist to like get up the courage to deal with my social anxiety. And I'm going to go up and I say, hi. Oh, so do you ride this train often? And then the lady says, get the fuck away from me. Ah! Right? Like
it's not the thing we're talking about, which is like women being assaulted by too much male sexual assertiveness, and then the idea we're saying is that we need to accept that the world has that, and women need to learn to be more aggressive and be more mean. And then we're kind of talking about, women could say, well, that shouldn't be the case. Men should learn to not do that. But I think it's the same with men too. Men and women both have the same problem. Is that their inability to, quote, be mean, also has implications in other ways. Like, people who can't be mean are gonna get like taken advantage of at work, or are gonna get screwed by people trying to scam them on the internet or whatever. So this ability to be mean protects you not just from creepy dudes who are trying to grope you. It protects you from all kinds of things.
The idea is that you have to just learn how to say no and assert yourself in a way, except that it's so easy to see that if you just go around the world telling people, no, my idea is the way things go, well, you're being assertive in the expense of the relationship. Many relationships will not tolerate you going around with some Attila the Hun style, whatever I say goes, or off with your head. Right? So obviously, as a clinical psychologist, you don't tell people to just run around asserting themselves wildly with loud announcements of, no, absolutely not, wrong, bad. Whatever I say is correct. Like, that's actually not assertive. That's like obnoxiously, I was going to say oppressive of other people's views, but it is in a way, but that's, I don't really want to get off on this whole idea of popular assumptions of what assertiveness is, because I'm more interested in this case and in these many cases I've seen over the years. And oftentimes I have to deal with guys and their inability to appropriately be effectively assertive. And so what I mean effective is to talk to your parents in a way that is conflict resolution oriented, but that doesn't compromise your own values and your dreams and story. So It's almost like getting your point across while allowing the other person's point to exist. So
yeah, totally. I think there's this philosophical concept. Well, Martin Buber wrote this book, I Thou, and it's sort of, I feel like this concept of I Thou is key in so many things, and I think it's essentially what you're saying is that when you're interacting with people, you want to have a clear, solid, confident, secure sense of yourself, and you want to have an awareness of and respect of the legitimacy and the validity of the other people, and to engage in the interaction from that sense of there's two people who are both like worthy, respectable creatures who need to be respected. And for some reason, it's hard. That's a high level of maturity to be able to do that, and most people don't. They either kind of collapse into being overly servile or deferent to the other, or they go into being overly egocentric and I'm the man. It's kind of like but it's hard to sit in this kind of like fully respecting myself and fully respecting the other. And I think it's similar to what you're saying. The other thought I think that's related to this in terms of effective assertiveness is it's like you're so secure in your own right to set boundaries that you don't really need to go and be throwing it in people's faces. You can actually kind of be gentle and calm and relaxed about it, because you know that back somewhere in you, you have the ability to fully set the boundaries, and therefore you don't need to be like throwing it in people's faces.
Yeah, that's a good point, because once you start trying to help people figure out, well, how do you cultivate this ability to potentially embrace your inner rudeness and or your inner, what did we say that women would have to acknowledge?
Mean. That they're mean.
Yeah, that they're mean, right? That you might have to offend someone. God forbid you offend someone, which is really messed up, because right now people are so outraged about being offended. And now here we are in a discussion saying, oh no, you have to be offensive, especially in this area.
Yep.
And I think that anybody who looks at what we're talking about and cries foul doesn't have a fucking foot on the ground. They literally do not have their finger on the pulse of what it's like to be someone who's significantly targeted for their goodies, right?
Yep. But I feel like there's three stages or steps that we're kind of talking about. The one is where the person is not comfortable being assertive, not comfortable being mean, not comfortable setting boundaries. And those people get exploited, taken advantage of, and they end up just like, and whether it's men sexually assaulting them or just harassing them, or whether it's their boss taking advantage of them. And then it feels like the next step is people who are just beginning to like try out their newfound aggression or assertiveness, and so they're baring their fangs and they're like, no, 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 and they're really like annoyingly assertive, and it sort of feels immaturely assertive.
Yeah.
And that ultimately you want to get to the third step where you're so confident and comfortable and secure in your right to set boundaries that you don't really need to do that very much, because you know that if and when you need to set boundaries, you can do it, but you can actually do it in a graceful and even kind and compassionate way.
Well said. That was it, right? I gotta say, that was one of the best summaries of our wild tangential journey. You literally, I gotta say, that was so spot on. If I had a gong, I would ring it. Like, it was impressive. This is one of those moments I was waiting for, where this is truly impressive. You'll have to take a look at it later to see exactly how we're wandering through this world that's kind of hard to tackle and grasp. And a lot of people try to write about this. There's a lot of people who have tried to talk about this. And it was really nicely put together in that almost like a stage-wise evolution of each of us in our journey towards something that would be universal in its application.
Yeah. And thank God it's not cyclical, because I don't want to fucking just be the cyclical dude.
No, dude, you just shown you just displayed that you are a more versatile cat, buddy. Like,
I can do stage models too, not just cyclical.
Yeah,
models.
you're working on multiple levels, man. I love that, dude. I think we should just wrap this up with that as the crescendo, and And clearly that's going first in the video.
All right. Sweet.
Awesome, man.
All right, dude.
Hey, so I guess
I'll send this shit. I'll upload this shit later today.
yeah. I gotta give you horrible news about the Spartan race. So I'll just text you later today.
All right, cool.
Okay, man.